Hello everyone, how are you? Okay, so as you may have noticed, I haven't been posting that much lately. I mean, I think it's coming up to about 5 weeks since I actually put anything up on this channel. Having said that, we've had some new subscribers, so welcome to you. If you're new to the channel, welcome as well. But I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about why I've not been posting, and I mean, there's been some things. If you've been watching the channel for a while, there's been a few things sort of building. Um, you know, like first of all, like the whole fake guitar thing. Which I wasn't involved in. That sort of like that just kind of like just put me off because thinking like if somebody's getting like you know hundreds of thousands or millions of views on a video by faking, and you're trying to do your best, to be honest, to have some integrity about what you do. But if somebody's getting all those views, it makes you think, well, what's the point? You know, where's it going? You know, and then of course, I have had some genuinely nice, appreciative comments as well from my audience, and I do thank you for that. So I've had some. It's always good to get compliments. But I've sort of, I don't know. I mean, like I say, it's been brewing for a while. I mean, like this last year, anyway. It's. I don't want to go into like the full details, but like this last year, I've kind of been trying to, trying to like trying to do a bit of like sort of self care, bit of therapy on myself. Trying to do a bit of like improvement. Like with diet and lifestyle, and questioning some choices I may have made in the past, and that sort of thing. Um, and then you start to think about, is my heart actually in the playing? I.e. the guitar. Um, and I think so. I may have mentioned like sort of between, I think sort of, I'm not sure it was January or February, but certainly February to March time. I was in this covers band. Like it's actually a tribute band. I'm not going to say who to. Um, and I just wasn't feeling it. So that was one thing. Um, and then the that sort of so that was March. But then shortly after that, there was the PMT closure in Nottingham. I used to go up to Nottingham quite regularly. Pop down to PMT. And with that closing, and same with like with Birmingham PMT as well. You know, I would go there quite regularly. I've just felt that I've just felt that loss. I don't know, maybe just kind of grieving for it. It's always like looking around for like used bargains and stuff. I mean, like this, for example. I'm going to talk about this guitar in another video, but I'll come back to this. But it was also, it's like with the closure of PMT. I don't really think my mind was actually on guitar for a while. I was putting videos up and stuff, but I've been getting more into violin again, actually. And also whilst I was in Nottingham, since I'm not going to PMT anymore, but still would go to Nottingham because I quite like having a nice afternoon out in Nottingham. I found this second-hand bookshop called Bookwise, and I mean, English second-hand bookshops. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Just where you can just go in there and just potter around and have a look at stuff. But in the back, they've got all this this used sheet music, you know, like, you know, any type of sort of music, but primarily classical music and opera and things like that. But they've got all these manuscripts and things. So I've gradually been picking up like a, you know, each time I've been there, I've gradually been going back and, you know, just picking up a few bits and pieces every so often, and just honing, you know, my skills on the violin, and then, you know, building up this profile. You know, like it's not just like just picking up, oh, that looks interesting, oh, that looks interesting. Actually, just finding this sort of niche. You know, players like Henryk Wieniawski, Fritz Kreisler as well. I mean, some of these names, if you're not a violinist, you've probably never heard of them. But to a violinist, they are, you know, they are like the core, you know. So I kind of been getting into that, and then maybe thinking, well, perhaps I should be doing violin instead, you know. Because with guitar, you know, it's either like, especially guitar YouTube, it's like, oh, look at this guitar I've got, isn't it cool? Or you're doing a review of a pedal, or you're doing a review of an amp, or this modelling thing's come out, or this other thing's come out, which I don't really understand, you know. So that's one side of it. Then there's, like, you know, trying to get a group together, and then of course, based on this thing I was in like, well, actually left in March, it sort of soured the taste of, like, you know, thinking about, you know, you're trying to find, you know, players who, you know, who can actually just, you know, who can actually work together, you know, play to a certain standard, but who you can actually just get on with as well. It's really, you know, it's really challenged me to actually think. And then of course, like the summer schools. I didn't do a summer school this year. I was thinking about it, but I kind of left it a bit late. And I was thinking, well, maybe I could just do like a violin school or something. And then I thought, well, if I've got all this sheet music, I could just spend a week or two at home, and just work through some of that. And that's kind of what I was doing. And I was starting to, like, see, you know, when you actually start coming back to, like, some of the YouTube stuff, where you're seeing, you know, some of these content creators always, like, having to put something out, you know, regularly, whether they've got something to say or not, just putting it out, and then you find out that they're repeating themselves, and you know, it seems to be getting a bit stale. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I was burnt out exactly, but more just kind of like, well, is it really worth pursuing? And then of course in you know, like in July, you know, there was that Ozzy Osbourne concert, you know, that back to the start, or I think it was all back to the start or back to the beginning. There was that. So you can kind of see how, you know, over like the past 50 odd years, how, you know, bands like, you know, when heavy metal was starting out, you know, with bands like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Cream, and probably like bands like The Who would be in there as well. It was a whole different landscape. You know, it's kind of like tied in with like a counterculture thing. You know, the whole stick it to the man sort of ethos. And as you're seeing these other bands who've been influenced by, you know, like Sabbath and Ozzy, you can see the kind of, you know, bands like Metallica and Slayer, they're also getting a bit long in the tooth as well, you know, but almost like feeding off past glories of like 40 years ago, you know, and I've not really been seeing any new, you know, like when I was younger, it was kind of like every sort of around the middle of a decade or so, there'd always be the rise of a new movement, you know. like, you know, like late 60s it was all that counterculture hippie stuff. Then in the 70s it was you know, like the punk, and then maybe like the disco stuff was going on as well. You know, and then the 80s, what was going on like the mid 80s, you know, and yeah, there was all like the hair metal stuff, wasn't there, and all that. But there was a few other things going on too. 90s all like the alternative rock stuff. Noughties all like the like the like the new metal, but always like house and trance and all that sort of stuff was going on. And then of course you start getting some of those bands like Coldplay and whatnot, you know, in the noughties. But it just kind of just seems to like there doesn't seem to be anything like that now. You know, music doesn't seem to be about youth anymore. You know, it seems to be about perpetuating, you know, a forgotten childhood. You know, forgotten memories of stuff that was going on. I'm trying not to be too negative here, but then I thought, well, I started coming back into it, you know, because you know, I think it's time, you know, like to actually just be a, you know, stand up being counted. Yeah, to stand up and be counted. You know, that maybe if I can actually help someone, if I can actually influence somebody who's maybe, you know, younger. I mean, we are supposed to be influencers, aren't we? After all. But if I could, you know, like show some, you know, a way of like improving your playing, or you know, introduce you to a particular type of music, or you know, if I can be of some use, then I should be doing that. You know, obviously. Then I'm now questioning, you know, what this channel should be about. You know. So, you know, one of the first questions I want to throw open to you. I'd like to do some more. So, I'd like to do some violin stuff for you. I'm going to need to get some show reel together for that anyway. But is that something you'd want to see, or would you just want to see more exclusively just guitar? You know, and then of course the second stuff, because you know the fact that Rush are reforming, that's another reason for coming back. Is that video I did about Alex Lifeson? That video seems to be doing quite well at the moment. You know, is it that, you know, more of those sort of sound like, or you know, like style analysis of key players? Would that be something you'd like to see? You know, I'd be quite happy doing things like that. So that kind of leads me into this. I mean, I'm not going to do a full review. I'm going to pick this up on Saturday from Fair Deal. I actually had to trade a couple of guitars in to get it, but it's this little beauty here. Yeah. Let's put this kick back down. So, what is it? Well, it's a 70s Greco Strat copy with an ash body, so it's quite weighty. But it's kind of it's basically it's kind of like sort of Ritchie Blackmore or Robin Trower, but especially like Ritchie when he was you know, like in Deep Purple days, you know, like sort of California Jam, etc. And the fact it's a bit beaten up as well, and like Eric Clapton was saying about like the fretboard being worn, you know, it's always a good sign on a maple board if there's some wear on the fretboard. It's obviously been refretted a few times, but I was just plugged this in, and I remember saying to, you know, like the lads in Fair Deal, I was saying, you know, this car's got so much mojo about it that I'm just gonna have to get it. So this has kind of like brought me back. I mean, I hadn't been playing Strats for a while. I've been getting more into like you know, my Gibson Midtown, or you know, like Les Pauls and what have you. But playing this again, I was kind of just you know, sort of re-inspired me, you know, to go back to, you know, what was it, you know, that got me playing in the first place, you know. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't like rambling too much, but I'd kind of reached that point where I didn't really have much to say, if you know what I mean. And I didn't want to be posting for the wrong reasons, you know, just posting for the sake of posting. I don't think that's enough. So, alright, please let me know your thoughts. thanks for watching as always. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and welcome. Hope you stick around. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Next time I'll be reviewing this, so yeah, check that one out. Alright, thanks very much.